Cool y'all recruiting nation. Guess who's back? Chief Totimeh here. Welcome to episode 16 of Uncharted Waters with the one, the only, the people's champ, Admiral James Waters. Today we have two phenomenal guests with us, arguably two of the most brilliant minds to possibly ever join the Navy. We have Lieutenant Commander Snyder and Master Chief Kinman. Gentlemen, welcome to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank
Glad
you
you're
for
here.
inviting us.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So today I had the pleasure of doing some research and I realized, excluding myself, there's 78 years of nuclear field experience in this room. Sir, can we start with you to talk about a little bit about your journey from an enlisted nuke into a submarine officer?
Absolutely. I enlisted in the Navy right out of high school as a nuclear field electronics technician back in 2004. While I was completing my initial nuclear training, I was fortunate to get selected for the Seaman to Admiral 21 nuclear program. And then from there, I finished the nuclear pipeline, went to college for 3 years. Once I finished my degree, went back to the officer naval nuclear power training pipeline. Did an initial submarine tour on the USS Pennsylvania for my division officer tour. Did an engineer officer tour on the USS Rhode Island, and most recently completed my executive officer tour on the USS Toledo. As far as shore duties go, I got here taking over the director of the NUPOC program in February. And unique that this is my second tour here, Navy Recruiting Command, serving in the NUPOC office. My post-division officer shore tour, I was one of the NTOs in the office for 3 years, so had a wealth of experience from the NUPOC program back then, and has been very fortunate to be able to bring that experience to bear now while helping us get back on track.
Yeah, it's been super helpful. You're probably the most experienced nuclear recruiter, in a long, long time. But I'm personally glad you're here, working the nuclear problem, if you will. It's been quite a journey, because you got here a little bit before I did, but our run has been pretty parallel, right? Yeah, so it's been really good, and I look forward to talking to you some more today about just how the nuclear program office works, and what we can tell recruiters about the process, right?
Well, yeah. Master Chief, can you talk to us a little bit about your 23-year career?
Absolutely. Joined the Navy January 2001. Out of Northern California. Went to Charleston, South Carolina after boot camp. Finished my nuclear power training. Went to the USS Kentucky out of Bangor, Washington. Did a tour there. Made chief on shore duty. Went back to Washington for my chief tour. And then most recently did my ETNCM tour on the USS Tennessee out of Kings Bay, Georgia. So boomer guy all 3 times, not necessarily by choice. That's just kind of the way it worked out for me. But enjoyed every minute of it. Checked in here March of 2024, so just about the same time you did, sir. And no recruiting experience, but
Plenty of nuclear experience. Yeah.
Right
And for the recruiters out there that may not know, this EDMC, or Engineering Department Master Chief, also known as the Bull Nuke, on the submarine, the most experienced enlisted nuclear trained sailor, providing advice and direction to the entire department, advising the engineer as well as the commanding officer on nuclear matters throughout your tour, and really the training program owner. And for those that may only be able to imagine, nuclear training is pretty significant, right? Always be training.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Master Chief, in regards to the enlisted nuclear field mission, can you speak a little bit about some of the new initiatives and some of the successes that have come from these new initiatives?
absolutely. So like I said, I've been here 4 months, and every single one of these happened in the last 4 months. Not because of me, because of some great ideas that have come from the field and from just CNRC in general. But our real goal was just to reduce the administrative burden that we were putting on the field when they were trying to enlist a future sailor in the Nuke program, right? So the waiver process had a lot in it. And some of those things were just not necessary. So we really worked with the community manager office in DC, as well as Naval Reactors, to just try to figure out where we could trim that fat, if you will. And we did that in just about every aspect, right? So age, citizenship, academic, right? Changing the NAPT score from 5.5 to 5.0, removing some of the non-traditional education barriers.
Yeah, when you talk about the non-traditional education barriers, that was if you didn't go to a public high school, but you still scored at the extraordinary level, which would have auto-qualified somebody from a public high school. So if you were homeschooled or
Went to a charter school.
went to a charter school, you wouldn't be auto-qualified. We've fixed that.
Yes, sir.
So that they're now all based on those line scores. Yeah, it's really, really impressive. And for the recruiters to give a little bit of perspective on the size of the nuke field mission, our overall active component mission is 40,600 for 2024, and the nuke field mission was
3,627 this year. So.
yeah with allowance for growing the depth.
Yes, sir.
Right. Our shipping mission was 3,427. And when you and I got here, right shortly after you got here, so still not your fault, we were tracking for a pretty sizable miss.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And for anyone that has seen the Robbie plot of Nuke Field recruiting, the bend in the curve is astounding. We are just a few dozen behind plan now, with the slope intersecting the line well before September 30th, as long as we stay on the trend. So these things you're talking about are no small thing.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah. Sir, so same question. Some of the initiatives and successes for nuclear propulsion candidate program officers?
Yes. So we've done a handful of things. So last spring, Naval Reactors stood up the Nuclear Manning Summit, and from that, a lot of things happened. One of them was a major change to the program authorization. For historically, you were allowed to be in the program for up to 2.5 years before graduation. We've now expanded that to 3.5 years before graduation. So college students can join our program halfway through their freshman year. And if they happen to be enrolled in a dual bachelor's and master's program, it's expanded to 4.5 years out from graduation. And we take into account, they're getting full pay and benefits of an E6 active duty sailor. To include time towards retirement, you're talking almost 25% of the required time to get to an active duty retirement while being a college student. So that's a phenomenal change that Naval Reactors and N133 put in place. Recently, we started doing annual NUPOC training, so hosted by my office. We just did our inaugural one in July. So hopefully that will enable the recruiters who turn over, coming into the field at a pretty high rate. We're able to do that regularly. They get initial training in NORU, and now we're going to establish the continuing training program via my office, as well as the MORU, the Mobile Officer Recruiting Academy. So my team was a part of that, kind of audited it, make sure that the training that they were doing and the testing that they were doing was in alignment with the program authorizations that had changed, to make sure that they're going down the right path. So there's a lot going on the training side of the house to make sure that we're enabling the recruiters as best we can to go out there and execute the mission. Also recently, my office, along the help with Senior Chief Fish, we started doing nuke field daily production reviews, and we did a very similar thing on the NUPOC side for officer production reviews. So we do those several times a week. We're doing a deep dive, helping the recruiters identify the processes that could be improved or that are lacking. Are they doing Salesforce administration? Doing a deep dive into what we have as our master tracker. Hey, what are the things that the recruiter should be doing on a daily or weekly basis to enable their leadership, who can review these things, to say, hey, these are the things that really need to be focused on now to ensure that the applicants can get through the NUPOC program in 2 to 3 months. That's where we want them to be. And that way from talking to the recruiter the first time, being in Washington, D.C. in front of Admiral Houston in less than 3 months. That's where we want to be. And a lot of the NUPOC OPR conversations are tailored towards those processes.
Yeah, so there's an interesting piece here. The nuclear recruiting piece, whether it's nuke field and to an even higher degree, NUPOC, there's quite a bit of process that occurs there. And it'll be good to kind of explore that a little bit in this podcast. But and being excellent at that process is a key element of success, and that's one of the things you're referring to. Before all that is prospecting, and it doesn't matter who you're recruiting. There still has to be activity to phone calls, school visits, you name it. There has to be contact. You have to bring people into that upper sales funnel in order to work them toward being a member of the Navy. And I think one of the big things that in both the nuke field and in the nuke POC side of the house that journey that the three of us have been on, along with a whole host of folks here at headquarters, is sort of formalizing that prospecting and activity plan to understand what it takes to get to the right number of contracts. And while nuke field is the same basic structure as recruiting other rates, NUPOC is, to your point, a multi-year process where you want to get them in front of Admiral Houston in 3 months, but they could be in that program for a number of years. Or you could be recruiting somebody in this year for OCS this year, right? And that's one of the challenges of the NUPOC program, or complexities, if you will, that you're going after somebody 3.5 years out or somebody, less than a year out, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A couple of other things that we're looking into also is right now historically naval reactors would set our interview capacity at 32. They have since expanded that to 40 for us based on the recruiters doing an outstanding job finding the applicants. We have almost 200 future sailors or applicants on our pool right now waiting to join the NUPOC program, going through the processes that we're talking about in these OPRs. So they've expanded that, and we're doing much, much better at bringing people to DC. Just kind of historically, this past 12 months, we brought in 289 people into the NUPOC program, which is outstanding.
Yeah, and this interview thing is unique among officer programs, right? So for the recruiters out there that are not familiar with this process, every nuclear trained officer or potential nuclear trained officer is interviewed by the director of naval reactors personally, interviewed by staff for technical questions. Do you understand sort of basic engineering principles, and can you apply them? And then the director does an interview. I still clearly remember my interview with Admiral DeMars, who was the second naval reactors after Admiral Rickover. We're a few generations past that now with Admiral Houston, but he still carries on that requirement, and it that's what you're referring to, is that you get these officer candidates or these folks that want to be nuclear trained officers. You have to work them through this process to get them to DC to see the technical folks and then go to see the 4-star. Pretty unique.
Yeah. Master Chief, in your opinion, what is the most difficult challenge for the enlisted nuclear field mission?
That's a good question. I think it's actually something that Admiral Waters kind of just mentioned. It's getting our recruiters into the high quality markets where you're going to find these potential nuclear applicants, right? So getting in the high schools that we want to get into to do these presentations in the STEM classes. And then when we get surveys from those, documenting them in Salesforce accordingly, and getting the recruiters to aggressively disposition those to a result, right? Understand not everybody who sees a nuclear presentation is going to want to join the Navy and be a nuke, and that's okay. But the more we can expose a sophomore or a junior to what the Navy has to offer and what the nuclear power program has to offer, the more we increase our chance of getting those future sailors in a recruiter's seat talking so we can close.
So one thing I want to comment on that is some of those high schools where that you're referring to, Master Chief, are also high schools that sometimes are difficult to get into, right? They tend to value their numbers for how many college applications they have, and sometimes they're a little reluctant to allow somebody recruiting to enlist in the Navy in their school. What I would say to recruiters is some of it is persistence and relationship building, finding the way in, but also don't bang your head into the wall recognize that part of your leadership's job is to break down those barriers, is to, whether it be the DLCPO or the CR, or perhaps it's the CO making a phone call to that school principal or guidance counselor to talk through the value of it, to get an advocate on the inside. But your point is spot on. We got to get in those schools. And frankly, if the NTAG CO, it could be the region commodore or me, that reaches out to that school system in an effort to open the door, because not every kid, even in those elite high schools, is going to go to college or is best suited to go to college.
Yeah. Sir, is it the same for the NUPOC mission?
So the single largest barrier we have is simply awareness of the program. So on the nuke field side, it's very much getting into that right market. For the NUPOC side, it's just letting students and educators know that the program exists. What we find is the program sells itself extremely well to the students who have a propensity to serve. So we have to go find those students. And there's multiple things that we do to help with that. So my office has a handful of lieutenants, and they go to multiple career fairs each fall and spring, historically in the order of 50 or so, and now we're trying to squeeze in about 70 each fall or spring by doubling down where we can to go to those career fairs. That's one thing that our office is trying to do. Separately, Admiral Houston has now opened the door, if you will, for us getting back on submarines. So since COVID happened, we stopped doing submarine embark educator orientation visits. We did our first one in April. We did our second one in July, and I did my third one last week, and we have a fourth in October and another coming up in February. I can tell you that these educators that come out there, they leave that trip a solid ambassador for the NUPOC program. So we work with the recruiters, say, hey, tell us which educators you're working with that are helping you put people in the program. We bring them out, we should really show them what their students, what careers we're giving their students, and they leave being a very strong advocate for our program.
And so recruiters have a direct line. I mean, they can reach back to the program office here to recommend somebody to
Yes, sir.
to go
Yes, sir.
on one of these things, so that we have this ambassador in the school.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then kind of the third main thing that we're standing up right now, Vice Admiral Goucher, Commander of the Submarine Forces, is currently working to assign every single flag officer as well as major commander in the submarine force. They're assigned to 37 different universities throughout this next school year that they're going to go out and make visits and engagements with staff, conduct presentations, meet students. So it's going to really raise awareness, not just for the NUPOC program, but for naval nuclear power as a whole. This is something that they have done traditionally for naval ROTC units, and now we're expanding that to NUPOC to raise awareness. So that's going to help break down what I consider the single largest barrier, which is just awareness of the program.
Yeah, getting that engineering professor or dean of engineering, as an advocate can make a huge difference in these numbers. And the mission is not ginormous by AC enlisted, the 40,000 number. Give the recruiters a sense of the order of magnitude of the annual mission.
Yes, sir. So for fiscal year 25, total is 213. It's typically around 270 or so is the normal mission.
Yeah. And those NUPOCs have options. They can apply for submarines, surface warfare, and there's several others. Naval reactors engineer, which is a small number, prototype instructor, and nuclear power school instructor, yes, sir, right? Yeah, so there's lots of different things.
Yeah. So with so many initiatives currently being implemented, it's making recruiting very easy now, or easier for recruiters. But one thing I know about sailors are they always want more. Can you speak a little bit about some new initiatives that the enterprise may not know about? We can start off with you, Master Chief.
Okay. So there's kind of one trick we still have in our bag that we haven't pulled out yet. We're still working on, and that is at least investigating the option of offering a third NAPT exam. Right. So currently, a future sailor gets an exam and a re-exam potentially. We're looking at offering a third chance for a future sailor to pass that NAPT and still be eligible to be a nuke. So.
Yeah, with criteria, like it looks
Absolutely.
like, hey, we're working our way to a better score on the second one.
Absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still in the early stages, but I think we're going to be able to get to a yes, and I think that's going to be another
helpful.
way that we'll be able to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir?
Yes, so for the NUPOC program right now, there's two main initiatives that we're working. actually as an enterprise. So for the first time this year, this spring, the Naval Academy, as well as Naval ROTC, the students who did not get accepted, we were provided their information, and we are actively reaching out to those people to say, hey, we know they have a propensity to serve, and now we're educating that the NUPOC program exists. And this is on the order of several thousand students, and we've already had hundreds of people reach back out to us. And as soon as they tell us they're willing to take the next step, at that point, we're reaching out to the recruiters and providing them these contacts.
Hot lead.
Hot lead. Very much hot leads. So those are two areas we're working right now to help the field.
I love it. I love it. So as we prepare to close out episode 16, my final question is for you, sir. Where do you see the nuclear enlisted mission by the closeout of this fiscal year?
Yeah, so absolutely. As Admiral Waters talked about earlier, we finished last month around 2,700, 2,800 contracts with a goal of 3,427. For the last 4 months, we've averaged about 400 contracts a month, 300 contracts per week, which, huge props to the sailors in the field. The 6 months previous to that, we were averaging about 200 per month, so outstanding job with a 100% increase. So if we're able to get 800 contracts a month for the last 2 months of the fiscal year, we'll absolutely close out the fiscal year, not just meeting the goal, but exceeding the goal.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, with a nice delayed entry program going into 25, which will then allow us to meter flow to recruit training command and make mission all year long.
Love it.
Yeah, sweet.
Love it. Sir, closing remarks?
Yes, great to have you back, Chief Totimeh.
Glad to be back, sir.
Thanks for rejoining from your
I'm
secret
happy.
missions.
Ooh, yeah.
And thanks to both of you for joining. This has been a great discussion about what's behind the scenes on nuclear recruiting, both enlisted and officer. And props to both of you for the way that you've been managing the program and bringing us back into the channel. So thank you. And thanks to the recruiters out there, because clearly we could manage in an amazing way. If you weren't out there bringing them in every single day, it wouldn't be working, and it is working. So thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
Ooh, yeah. Recruiter Nation, thank you so much for tuning into episode 16 of Uncharted Waters with the one, the only, the people's champ, Admiral James Waters. Chief Totimeh, out.